Song Xin joins me now from Beijing. She's the founder of Sinnvoll Think Tank and a former policy advisor at the European Parliament. Let's talk about the foreign minister's swing through Europe. Ross, just bring us up to date on the visit to France. It comes on the heels of this trip to Berlin. These talks in Paris, though, expected to build on the recent trip by both French President Macron and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Can you talk to us about that recent trip and give us a sense of where these relationships are at this stage?
Good morning, and thanks for inviting me here. I think the principal reason behind the intense political exchanges between Europe and China is really to defreeze the EU-China relationship, because basically that bilateral relationship had gone worse and worse for a while since the beginning of the pandemic. So the message behind Scholz, Macron, and von der Leyen's trips are on the one hand, to reassure China that EU or the European companies, they are not like the US companies or the US government who are trying to decouple with China. The Europeans, they are just adopting another approach, which is totally different, called the de-risking, which means just to diversify their supply chains and market instead of being too dependent on any particular country or market. Regarding about the current EU-China relationship, I would say right now they are trying to pick up some previous discussions on, for example, bilateral investment. This CAI was actually adopted in 2020, by both sides, but then the process was halted within the European Parliament due to some Chinese sanctions towards the member of the Parliament. And right now there is this kind of rediscussion about it. So probably this year, a part of this agreement could be repassed by the Parliament, hopefully, or there will be some other ways really to pass it during the next mandate of the Parliament. So
in that sense, can trade ties be bolstered with a trip like this?
Yeah, definitely. I think, first of all, I just want to, like I mentioned, this is first to defreeze, right? To put everything back to the track, first of all. And then they will want to see whether there are ways really to booster really the investment, because the EU, the European economy suffers so much during the pandemic, and they really need some kind of economic exchanges with China. And right now, since Europe is facing the Ukrainian war in front of them, so they have this kind of inflation and even stagnation problem within the European Union, and that is really bad for the economic outlook. So for the EU, there's this kind of need really to reach out to China, to Chinese companies, to Chinese market. And from the Chinese side, it's the same, because the US-China relationship is not really going to anywhere better. So they really need the Europeans to support their industry, their manufacturers, and also some at global level for the global governance, for example. So I think there is a mutual benefits in this relationship right now that come up more and more clearer. And also the EU is counting on China really to play as a mediator between Russia and Ukraine. And President Macron even set up this agenda. So they want to invite the Chinese mediators to come to Ukraine in summer, starting from June, I think. So I think right now that is really a stage where we are getting back to the right track.
And Qin Gang's next stop is Norway. What can we expect on that part of the swing of this trip? Because obviously the Arctic, very important to China and several countries for that matter.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, China has been member of this Arctic Council since 2013, I think, and China identified itself as a near-Arctic state, and they issued this policy is called Solar, I think, Silk Road policy in 2013, just to make sure that China is also part of this bigger geopolitical scope. And right now, Norway is going to be the president. I think from today is going to be the president of this Arctic Council for 2 years. So there are a lot of issues that they can discuss between Norway and China, and also between China, how China can play within this Arctic Council. And of course, Russian is definitely one of the main issues, because Russian is actually was the president before Norway of this Arctic Council, and how to interact or intervene like in this conflict with all the Nordic countries. That would be one of the main topics, I guess, for his trip to Norway.
Song Xin, thank you so much for your insights. Great talking to you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.